stories of the people and the experiences we share. This is Matt Stell Reports.
1968, it was a year that America would never forget. The assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King and Robert F. Kennedy, racial protests from coast to coast, the war in Vietnam wrapping up, an election where political ideology started to switch. But here in Lubbock, a new high school on the east side of town brought together a community in some of the most turbulent of times, led by a band of brothers.
Oh, easy.
It's a Saturday morning breakfast made for champions.
When they gave the ball, when we played,
they pick right back up on conversation and laughs, just like they did at Estacado High School more than 55 years ago. What brought them all together back then was a love for football. Their legendary coach, Jimmy Keeling, says he knew early on he was in the right place.
I'm going to say it took me about maybe 22 minutes to figure out we had something really special with this group of guys. They just were, they're very athletic, but they were just fine young men.
we were all brothers. We're still brothers. But when we met Coach Keeling, there was no black, there was no white. We were all one.
You see, in 1967, Estacado had just opened up as one of the first high schools in West Texas to be fully integrated, a move some thought would be a disaster.
He took the job. He never told anyone because he wanted to prove them all wrong. People told him he was crazy for taking that Estacado job because blacks and whites couldn't work together because they never had. And remind me of remember the Titans.
But this team, made up of black, white, and Hispanic young men, showed that it could be done.
If you wasn't tough, you wasn't going to be out there. We seen a whole bunch of them headed to the top. I mean, and it didn't matter if you were black. We hit each other as hard as we hit the opponents in practice.
You didn't want to get hit, you didn't want to play the matadors.
In their first season as a JV squad, the Matadors outscored their opponents 403-30. But it was in that very next year when they would be solidified as legends.
Every game we would meet in the middle of the field. They say all for one for all. The team that can't be beat won't be beat.
And beat they were not. Even though picked to finish last in district, the 68 Matadors were undefeated in the regular season, outscoring their opponents 559-32, clinching the district title, which was the only way back then to get into the state playoffs. While their success was celebrated at home, on the road was often a different story.
We were going to places where black people didn't go. In this area, in West Texas. I mean, it was a lot of attention that our parents took on. Our parents would come in caravans. I mean, following the bus all the way to wherever we were going, just to protect the kids.
Those places that we wasn't treated maybe as respectable or as honorable as we maybe thought we would like to be treated at a team, folks were slow to accept the black integration thing. And they had a disdain for white boys that run with them.
When my mother was there with my younger brothers and sisters, she had a flat, had a sticker on there. She couldn't get her tire fixed.
When we left Sweetwater, we had to go to Abilene to take a shower.
We couldn't go in a restaurant. If we didn't call ahead and say, you know, we had to explain, okay, we're a mixed group now. If you don't want our business, it's okay, but tell me right now.
Despite the racism on the outside, the guys from Estacado had one goal in mind: to win it all come December.
After each game, we would put a run up there all the way up until we got to that state championship game.
Called Ladder to Success.
Ladder to Success.
Easily beating Brownwood, Kermit, and Henderson in the 3A playoffs, the crowning moment came against the Bobcats from Refugio. 55 years later, these men still haven't forgotten the chant they sung leading up to that big game.
Here comes the mighty Matadors. We are the Matadors. The mighty Matadors.
And mighty they were, beating the Bobcats 14-0, capping a perfect season, and to this day, the last Lubbock ISD school to win a state championship in football.
Through all of them and observing and being a part of it, through each one of them, I gained some discipline, I gained something that benefited me in the long run.
It's just a family atmosphere that I wish there was some magic way that people could live what we lived. Our world would be in a lot better shape.
Sadly, about half of that championship team has since passed, including the team's beloved quarterback, Ken Wallace. But moments like these, even over a simple breakfast, show us the power of sports, unity, and love.
Obviously, the football and winning was big, but just working with these guys and loving on these guys was a huge thing.
And I would like for another team to win it, but I don't want them to go 14-0. 13-1. That's good.
Coach Jimmy Keeling, who's now 89 years old, had a few other stops after Estacado, but he's probably most known for his 20 years as the head coach at Hardin Simmons in Abilene. He was later inducted into the Texas High School Coaches Hall of Honor. Now, to put into perspective just how dominant on both sides of the ball that 1968 team was, 10 of their 14 games were complete shutouts. And to this day, they are still the only school to win a state championship in its first year of UIL competition.